I was 12 years old when I first learned the most dangerous truth of my life, that the master's son was not just my owner's child. He was my brother, not brother in the way we slaves clung to one another in the quarters, calling each other kin to ease the loneliness of chains. No, by blood. By the same father whose name weighed on every field and every life at Whitley Plantation. His mother wore pearls. Mine wore iron. Mistress Whitley lived in silks and shadows of candlelight. My mother, Sarah, lived in the kitchen's heat, and she died the night I was born. From her I inherited only silence, and the amber eyes that gave me away. It was a July afternoon in 1850, when Thomas rode past on his stallion, 14 and smiling, too young to know danger, but old enough to see the truth. He pulled my chin upward, annoyed at my lowered gaze, and when our eyes met, his widened. The amber flame burning in both our faces. He whispered it like a secret prayer. We are brothers. That word should have killed me. Any other master's son would have denied it with a whip or a noose. But Thomas smiled, almost proud, as if he had uncovered treasure. He didn't know that secret would one day burn his world to the ground, and that it would be me, his own blood, who struck the match. Subscribe now and tell me, if freedom demanded betraying your brother, could you do it? I came into this world in chains. My mother, Sarah, drew her last breath the same night I drew my first. The midwife said she was too young, too worn by kitchen work and punishment, to survive both labor and life. They carried her body out before sunrise and carried me into a life she could not protect me from. On the plantation records, my father wrote another man's name as mine. Joseph, a slave who had been sold south years earlier, became the fiction of my bloodline. But everyone who looked at me knew I had Master Whitley's eyes, the same unusual shade of amber that burned like embers in his face. A dangerous resemblance. Mistress Whitley could never bear to look at me. When I served in the kitchen, she moved as though air had thickened around her. Her lips pressed so tight they left no color. To her, I was a walking insult, a living reminder of her husband's betrayal. She never raised her hand to strike me. She didn't have to. Her silence cut deeper than any whip. The fields of southern Maryland were my cradle. Tobacco stretched farther than a boy could see, its leaves heavy with summer humidity, its soil dark as mourning cloth. Overseers barked orders, dogs prowled the edges, and every dawn was a reminder that my life belonged to another man. And yet, even in those years of shadow, I carried a dangerous secret I could not name. A closeness to Thomas, a shared bloodline we did not yet understand. By the time I was old enough to lift a bucket, whispers already followed me. That boy favors the master. Those eyes don't lie. Whispers could kill a slave. Whispers could burn down a family. I learned early to keep my head down, to let silence be my armor. But silence does not erase blood. It only delays the reckoning. Maryland, 1840s, one boy born in silence. A life chained by whispers. If you were born carrying a secret that could destroy you, would you hide it or speak it? It was the summer of 1850 when the truth first revealed itself. I was 12 years old, carrying a bucket of water across the yard. The sun was cruel that day, pressing heat into the earth until the air shimmered like fire. Sweat ran into my eyes, but I kept my head down. On Whitley Plantation, a slave learned early, never meet a white man's gaze. Then came the sound of hooves, sharp, confident. Thomas Whitley rode past, his stallion black as midnight. The boy himself grinning like he owned the horizon, 14 and already the image of his father. He reined the horse too close, spattering my legs with dust. James, he called. Look what father gave me for my birthday. I nodded, murmuring the proper words of admiration, keeping my eyes on the ground. But Thomas was not satisfied. He swung down from the saddle, boyish impatience burning in his face. He seized my chin, forced my head upward. Stop that, he said. Look at me when I'm speaking. And so I did. For the first time, our eyes locked. His widened, my breath caught, amber, both of us. The same uncommon flame in the iris, the same mark that branded us sons of the same man. Thomas staggered back, staring as if the world had tilted. He glanced at his reflection in the water bucket, then back at me. James, you don't look like Joseph. His voice dropped to a whisper. You look like father. The truth stood naked between us, shimmering hotter than the July sun. I should have denied it. Should have fallen to my knees, begged forgiveness for the insult. That was the safer road. But silence betrayed me. Silence always does. Thomas's face flickered through confusion, shock, then a kind of wonder. "We are brothers," he whispered, as though testing the shape of the words. "Half-brothers. Bound by blood. Divided by law. Most white sons would have spat in my face. Called the overseer. Had me whipped for daring to share their father." But Thomas smiled, as if he had discovered a treasure no one else knew. "Don't call me young master when we're alone," he said quickly. "Call me Thomas. It was a dangerous request. If overheard, I could pay with 20 lashes. But his eyes, our eyes, left me no room to refuse. Yes, Thomas," he beamed, vaulting back onto his horse. "I'll speak to father. Maybe he'll let you work in the house, maybe even learn with me. Wouldn't that be something?" The stallion kicked and Thomas galloped away, leaving me with spilled water, shaking hands, and a heart caught between dread and longing. For that was the day I learned two truths: that blood bound us closer than either of us could deny. And that blood, once spoken aloud, could one day kill us both. Maryland, 1850, 2 boys, 1 pair of amber eyes. A secret too dangerous to name. If you saw your own reflection in the eyes of your master's son, would you call him brother, or would you turn away? That evening, after Thomas rode away smiling with his secret, I felt a shadow fall across me that no sun could lift. The plantation has ears, and whispers move faster than fire in dry grass. By nightfall, our brotherhood had already reached the big house. I was summoned to the master's study. I had never stepped past the kitchen doors before. My world was smoke, grease, and stone floors. Now I walked across velvet carpets that hushed every step, walls lined with books I had only dreamed of touching. Master Whitley stood by the window, broad shoulders framed against the fading tobacco fields. His voice was calm, but iron ran beneath it. "My son," he said without turning, "has developed unusual notions. He seems to believe you share some special connection." I kept my eyes fixed on the floor. "No, master. Look at me, boy." When I raised my gaze, I saw my own face, aged and hardened. The amber eyes, sharp and cold. He studied me long, then spoke with quiet contempt. "You favor your mother. Too handsome for her own good. It caused trouble." It was the closest he would ever come to admitting the truth. But his next words cut deeper. "Thomas has a tender heart. Too much imagination? He reads things he should not. It fills his head with ideas incompatible with our way of life." He pulled a folded paper from his desk. "I've arranged for your transfer. My cousin in Frederick County requires a steady hand. You leave tomorrow." The word transfer chilled me. Not sold, not freed. Just moved like a ledger entry. "Master," I whispered, "am I being sold?" "No," his eyes flashed. "You remain mine. Consider this a loan of services. You'll be treated well if you remember your place." I understood the unspoken threat. Stay away from Thomas. Do not confuse him with notions of brotherhood. "Yes, master." As I turned to leave, his voice caught me again. "James, I know you've been taught your letters." My blood froze. Old Harriet, the cook, had slipped me scraps of knowledge. How to shape words, how to count numbers. Crime in Maryland. A hanging offense. "No, master," I lied. His eyes narrowed, searching me, then he waved his hand. "See that it stays that way. Education gives a slave dangerous ideas above his station." The next morning, they loaded me onto a wagon. My bundle held little more than rags and memory. As the wheels turned, I looked up once. Thomas was at his bedroom window, hand raised in farewell, his face stricken. I turned away before he saw the fire in my eyes. That was the last I saw of my father's house. The last I saw of Thomas for 10 years. In those years apart, the seed of betrayal was planted. A seed watered not with love, but with exile. Maryland, 1851 study. One command. A son exiled for the crime of blood. If your master sent you away to erase your brotherhood, would you obey? Or would you fight to stay? Frederick County was a different world from the plantation. The fields gave way to warehouses, smoke from chimneys, and the muddy noise of wagons rolling toward market. Here, slaves brushed shoulders with free black men in the streets, a sight that left me both stunned and aching. Freedom walked beside me, but I could not touch it. Master Whitley's cousin Edward was a businessman, sharper than rich planters, but with none of their refinement. He studied me within weeks, eyes narrowing over the ledgers I carried. "You can read, can't you?" he asked one evening. I froze. A lie could save my skin or end me. But Edward smirked. "Don't bother denying it. I've seen your figures. A man who pretends that ignorance always leaves traces." I braced for punishment. Instead, he slid the ledger across the desk. "Then you'll be useful. You'll keep my accounts. Do it well, and you'll eat better than the field hands." So my curse became my cover. By day, I sharpened my skill with numbers and words. By night, I buried the hunger for more, for something beyond books stolen in shadows. It was in that town, on a bitter winter morning in 1858, that I first brushed against the Underground Railroad. I carried papers to a Quaker merchant, Abram Wilson, his shop lined with rough wool and simple goods. As he checked the numbers, I noticed a chalked star scratched faintly by the door. Then I saw him. The young black man, clothes ill-fitted, eyes red with exhaustion, slipping through the back before vanishing again. Wilson caught me staring. "Is there something else, James?" he asked evenly. For a moment, silence screamed between us. Then I said carefully, "The Jenkins account. Perhaps we should check the previous month's records." The words were harmless on the surface, but my eyes told him I had seen what I should not. Relief softened his face. He nodded slowly. "Indeed, previous records often provide context." That night, Wilson came to the warehouse after dark. He didn't waste words. "There are those who believe all men are created equal," he said, voice low. "Not just in God's eyes, but in law. Some put such belief into action." His gaze pierced me. "A man must listen for the voice that speaks when all others fall silent." "Have you heard it, James?" I did not answer, but my silence was louder than words. He turned to go, pausing at the door. "Should that voice call you, remember the friends meeting. House has a cellar that runs deeper than its foundations." Then, he left me with a secret that felt heavier than chains. That was the first night I dreamed of escape. Not just for myself, but for everyone. Frederick, 1858, one chalk star, one whispered code. A path to freedom begins. If you glimpsed a door to freedom but knew stepping through could cost your life, would you risk it? It was the winter of 1859 when word reached Frederick. A letter sealed with the Whitley crest summoned me back. My master, my father, was dying. His only son, Thomas, now held the keys to the plantation. And for reasons I could not yet fathom, he had asked for me. The road south felt longer than the years that had passed. Each mile carried the weight of memory, fields of tobacco, the smell of smoke, the cries at dawn. 10 years had sharpened me into a man, but I still felt the boy who once bowed his head at the sight of the big house. When I arrived, the plantation seemed smaller, shabbier. Fewer hands worked the fields. The house stood weathered, its paint dull, its grandeur cracked. But Thomas was there on the porch, no longer a boy, but tall, confident, 24 years old. His face bore our father's shape, but when he saw me, it lit with something else. "James," he said, striding forward. "By God, it's good to see you." For a moment I thought he might embrace me, but too many eyes watched. Instead, he held out his hand, a white man, a master. Offering his hand to a slave, I took it, trembling. "Come inside," he said warmly. "I've prepared a room for you in the main house." The words struck like thunder. No slave lived in the master's walls, yet he led me there himself. A small chamber near the kitchen, but with a bed, a chair, and, most shocking of all, a bookshelf. "I remember how you stared at Father's library," Thomas said. "So I gathered these for you." I ran my hand over the spines, Milton, Bunyan, and one that made my heart seize, the narrative of Frederick Douglass. "A book outlawed, punishable if found." "This is illegal," I whispered. Thomas waved it away. "Only if someone tells?" And who would? I wanted to laugh at his naivety. Everyone would. Every overseer, every neighbor, even slaves loyal to the family. "You don't understand," I said quietly. "I am your father's property. That doesn't change because you call me brother." His amber eyes met mine. "That's exactly what I want to change." In that moment, I saw what 10 years had done to him. He had grown into a man who believed he could bend the world with kindness. He spoke of reform, of freedom, of reshaping the plantation into something just. But I had spent those 10 years learning that freedom does not come by kindness. It comes by fire, by secrecy, by flight. So when Thomas clasped my shoulder and said, "I need you, James. Together we can change everything," I nodded. But in my heart, I knew I would help him, yes, but not in the way he dreamed. Maryland, 1859, 2 men. One brother calls for trust. The other carries a secret vow. If your master's son welcomed you as brother, would you believe him? Or plan your escape? Thomas spoke like a man in love with his own vision. We walked the plantation boundary one cool evening, the fields rustling around us like restless ghosts. He pointed to the rows of cabins, to the bent backs in the tobacco fields. "When father dies," he said, "I'll free them. Not all at once, that would bring chaos. But gradually, the oldest first, those who gave their lives to this land. Then the families, step by step, legally, carefully, until the Whitley plantation becomes the first of its kind. A place where freedmen work for wages, share in profit, live with dignity." He spoke with fire in his eyes, amber catching the fading sun. He truly believed it. "Why?" I asked, testing him. "Because it's right," he said simply. "Because every time I look at you, James, I see the absurdity of this system. My brother, my blood, treated as property. I cannot live with that hypocrisy." For a moment I almost believed him. Almost, but I had lived outside these walls. I had seen fugitives stumble into safe houses, half-starved, with dogs still barking on their scent. I had carried coded messages, slipped food into trembling hands, heard prayers whispered in cellars. Freedom was not a petition to be filed in a courthouse. Freedom was a flight in the dark, a risk of blood. "Thomas," I said softly, "the neighbors will hate you. The law will block you. They will call you traitor. Let them," he said, chin high. "Times are changing. Lincoln may win the presidency. History is bending. And when it does, I'll be on the right side of it." He gripped my arm with brotherly fervor. "But I can't do this alone. You understand both worlds, the quarters and the ledgers. I need your help," I nodded. "Yes, Thomas. I'll help you." But in my heart, the words meant something else. I would help him, yes, but not to build a slower cage gilded with wages. I would help him create the conditions for something larger. The railroad had shown me the path. Immediate, dangerous, final. As he spoke of courts and papers, I imagined lantern signals in the night. As he dreamed of gradual reform, I counted how many could slip away at once. And while Thomas believed he was planting seeds of freedom, I knew I was laying tinder for a fire he could never control. Maryland, 1860. One dreamer builds a plan of patience. One brother sharpens a plan of escape. If freedom came slowly by kindness or swiftly by risk, which would you choose? By daylight, I was Thomas's shadow. He gave me tasks no slave had ever been trusted with. Managing supplies, setting schedules, even balancing the accounts father once kept under lock and key. Overseer Connolly bristled with rage, forced to take orders passed through me. He spat on the ground whenever I walked by, muttering that he would not be ruled by a black man. The field hands, too, watched me with suspicion. Was I still one of them or just a new face of authority? Their eyes asked questions I could not answer. I told myself the truth would come in time. Thomas, for his part, acted as though the world had already changed. He ended whippings. He cut the working hours, allowed children rest from the fields. He even built a makeshift school in an empty tobacco barn, where older slaves traced letters in the dirt, and children sounded out words. "Knowledge is the key," Thomas told me one evening, pride shining. "With learning, they'll be ready for freedom." I said nothing. I remembered Harriet, the cook, whispering letters to me in candlelight, risking her life so that one day I could risk mine. Freedom didn't wait on learning. It was carved out in silence, sweat and peril. So while Thomas dreamed by lamplight, I moved in shadow. It was Abram Wilson, the Quaker merchant, who returned the thread of my old life. Delivering tobacco one morning, he murmured while inspecting a bale, "The friends remember you. They wonder if you've found your path." "I've found many paths," I said carefully. That night, another contact came. The miller's son, Nathan, a boy of 17 with fire in his eyes. He slipped me messages folded in flour sacks, patrol routes, safe houses, signs to watch for. Through him I rejoined the railroad's web, my hands now weaving strands that stretched from Frederick to Pennsylvania. Each night, I studied the plantation's routines, the guards, the dogs, the habits of the men who drank too much. I wrote them in memory, never on paper, and passed them north. And each morning Thomas greeted me with trust so naked it burned. He clasped my shoulder, spoke of our future, called me brother in private. The guilt was a stone in my chest. I betrayed his every word even as he lifted me above chains. But the truth was iron. Thomas's dream moved too slow. The law would crush him before freedom ever reached the quarters. His plan might free a handful over years. Mine could free dozens in a single night. So I lived two lives, by day a loyal brother, by night a silent conductor, turning his kindness into cover for rebellion. And with each step the reckoning drew closer. Maryland, 1860. By day, a brother's right hand. By night, a traitor's shadow. Could you betray the only person who ever called you family, if it meant freedom for everyone else? The old master lingered longer than the doctors expected. Consumption wasted him to a husk, but still he clung to life like a weed to dry soil. The house fell silent in those months, the rooms heavy with the sound of his coughing. The smell of burning herbs meant to mask the rot of death. Then, one November evening, it ended. His body stiffened, his breath broke, and with it the order of Whitley Plantation passed to Thomas. The funeral drew the neighbors, their black coats and white gloves stark against the tobacco fields. They muttered prayers over the coffin but spoke in tighter circles afterward. I overheard them in the study, voices low, words sharp as knives. "It's worse than we feared," one said. "He's already filed manumission papers for 5 slaves. Can it be stopped?" Another asked. "A committee of citizens may need to explain his duties. For his own protection, of course. Their politeness was poison. I knew the meaning. Thomas was marked. His kindness had crossed into threat. Meanwhile, Thomas was blind with hope. He spoke to me that night, his face alight. "I've begun the process, James. The first 5 will be freed by spring. Then more as the courts allow. It's happening." He saw progress. I saw a fuse burning. The whispers in town grew louder. Rumors of abolitionist pamphlets on Whitley land. Stories of Thomas planning wages, even schools. To the neighbors, he wasn't a reformer. He was a traitor. And yet he trusted me more than ever. He pressed my hand over the papers, his eyes fierce. "You'll help me guide this. We'll prove that change can come without violence." I nodded, but inside, the railroad's voices crowded me. Now, before it's too late. Before the noose tightens around him, and around us all. That night I sent word north through Nathan. "Prepare. Within weeks we move." For if Thomas believed he had time, I knew better. The South was a tinderbox, and my brother was about to be the spark. Maryland, 1860, 1 death, 1 inheritance. One brother's dream now hunted by his own neighbors. If your brother's mercy put everyone in danger, would you protect him or save yourself? The night we fled was moonless, the air sharp with cold. Silence clung to the cabins, broken only by the restless stir of those who knew this night would change everything. I had counted them carefully. 42 souls, men and women, 7 children clutched in trembling arms. Too many to move quickly, not enough to abandon. All or none. That was the choice. We met in the old tobacco barn, its rafters sagging like tired shoulders. Lanterns were forbidden. Only a single coal glowed faintly in the corner. Each face I knew, Esther, who had been my mother's friend. Joshua, broad-shouldered and steady as an oak. Sarah from the laundry, holding her daughter tight. "Is it true, James?" Esther whispered. "Are we really leaving?" "Yes," I said. My voice felt foreign in the stillness. "Tonight we walk toward freedom. Stay close. Stay silent. If we are separated, follow the North Star. Trust no one unless they give the sign." Every word tasted like iron. For as I spoke, I thought of Thomas sitting in the big house, likely still awake with his papers and dreams. He trusted me, called me brother, and I was about to strip him of nearly everything he owned. At midnight we moved. They slipped from cabins in pairs, shadows blending into the tree line. Mothers pressed hands over children's mouths to smother cries. Bare feet padded over frozen earth. I carried nothing but a small satchel of food and a map burned into memory. As we crossed the ridge, The plantation lay behind us, pale in the starlight. I turned once. The house stood silent, its windows glowing faintly. One window burned brighter, Thomas's. He was reading as he often did late into the night. A spear of guilt pierced me. I almost stopped. Almost. But then I felt a child's hand slip into mine, tiny fingers clutching for safety. 42 lives pressed forward, and my choice was made. We slipped into the woods, following deer paths and stream beds, every sound magnified in the dark. The snap of a twig, the cough of an old man, the muffled sob of a mother. I led with steady pace, heart pounding like a drum. Behind us, the plantation faded into silence. Ahead, the North Star burned like a promise. This was the point of no return. Maryland, 1860. 42 souls in the night. One brother's trust, broken forever. If freedom called in whispers at midnight, would you risk everything? Or stay where chains felt safe? The first sound was distant, low, savage, unmistakable. Dogs. Their howls split the silence of the woods, carried on the cold wind like a death knell. Children clung tighter. Mothers whispered prayers. The old ones stumbled, fear draining the strength from their legs. We go into the water, I hissed. The creek will hide our scent. One by one we waded in. The water was black, its current cold as iron teeth gnawing at our skin. The youngest cried at the shock, but we pressed on, forming a human chain. The strongest carried the smallest, others steadied the weak. Behind us, the baying grew louder. The hounds reached the banks, their voices rising into frenzy. Torches flickered between the trees. Faster, I urged, though each step numbed my legs. Then a shout split the night. There! In the creek! I turned, and my breath died in my chest. At the front of the riders, tall in the saddle, amber eyes lit by torchlight, was Thomas. Brother, his hand shot up, halting the rifles aimed at us. Don't shoot. They're mine. Mine, even now. Even here, his property. His people. The others pressed forward in panic. North Bank, I cried. Run for the river, go. They scrambled, hauling children up the muddy slope, vanishing into the trees. I stayed in the water, drawing the riders' eyes. James. Thomas's voice cracked through the night. Stop this madness. Come back. I lifted my hands, not in surrender, but in defiance. Too late, Thomas. Freedom does not wait. The horses thrashed at the bank. Dogs lunged against their chains. The riders shouted, rifles wavering. And still, for a heartbeat, Thomas's gaze locked with mine. Brother to brother, fire to fire. I could see the hurt, the disbelief, and beneath it something darker. The fear that he was losing everything, not to an enemy, but to blood of his own blood. Then the spell broke. The hounds surged, the riders spurred, and the creek became a battlefield of water and shadows. I plunged deeper, letting the current drag me downstream, away from the fugitives, away from safety, toward Thomas, toward Reckoning, Maryland, 1860, 42 in flight. One creek, two brothers face each other by torchlight. If your brother rode against you with chains in his hands, would you stop or keep running? The creek bent hard around a hill, giving me seconds to climb out and vanish into the underbrush. I tore branches, left scraps of cloth, breaking trail on purpose. If the riders followed me, the others might reach the river unseen. For 20 minutes I ran like a hunted deer, lungs burning, dogs baying closer. At last my strength gave out, and I stumbled into a clearing lit by moonlight. A horse snorted, hooves thudded. Thomas burst through the trees alone ahead of the pack. He reined in sharply, the stallion's breath steaming in the cold. For a moment neither of us spoke, only the dogs in the distance, only the pounding in my chest. James, he said at last. My name half accusation, half plea. Thomas. I straightened, refusing to bow. Turn back. The others will be gone by now. Why? His voice cracked. I was going to free you. All of you. I had the papers drawn. I meant every word. And you, his throat tightened. You betrayed me. Too slow, I said, my voice low but steady. Freedom cannot wait for another man's permission. Not even yours. He clenched the reins, anguish twisting his face. I called you brother. You are my half-brother, I answered. Born into privilege, but my true brothers and sisters are in the fields, in the chains you never wore. Their freedom matters more than blood. For a heartbeat, the air between us was unbearable, filled with pain, love, betrayal. The riders crashed closer, the dogs nearly upon us. Then Thomas's jaw tightened. He pointed east to a thicket. "Go now, I'll tell them you crossed south." I stared, stunned. "You'd help me? After all I've cost you?" His amber eyes burned. "I don't understand you, James, but I cannot hand you over." "Not tonight," the riders burst through the brush. "Which way?" they cried. Thomas lifted his hand. "South, toward the ravine." They thundered past, chasing a ghost. I slipped into the thicket, heart breaking with every step. Behind me, Thomas's voice carried in the dark, giving false orders, sending the hunters away. For the first time, my brother saved me. Not with papers, not with promises, but with choice, Maryland, 1860. In the clearing, betrayal met mercy. One brother lied to save the other. If your brother betrayed you, would you hunt him down or set him free? The river took us north. Lantern signals flashed, boats pulled us across in silence, and for the first time I set foot on soil where no law claimed me as property. Of the 42 who fled, 39 reached Canada safely. 3 were lost along the way, 1 to sickness, 2 who chose to stay behind in Pennsylvania. Their names I carry still. In St. Catharines, Ontario, I spoke my full name aloud without fear. James Whitley. Not to claim the master's house, but to claim the whole truth of who I was. Born in chains, escaped by fire, bound by blood to the man I had betrayed. For years, I heard nothing of Thomas. The Civil War swallowed Maryland in confusion. Neighbors divided, families torn. I believed our bond, whatever it had been, was gone forever. Then in 1863, a letter reached me. The handwriting was his. "Dear James," it began, "you may be surprised to hear from me. I will not pretend the loss did not wound me. 42 souls gone, the plantation gutted. For months I cursed your name, but time and war have changed my sight. Freedom given by a master is still bondage. Freedom taken by one's own hand, that is true. I see now what you meant that night by the creek." He ended with words I never expected. "You chose your true family, and in doing so you taught me what brotherhood requires. If you ever return to Maryland, know you would not be a slave, but a free man, and always my brother." I never returned. Some bridges once burned are ash forever, but I kept the letter, folded, worn. A reminder that even across the gulf of blood and chains, understanding is possible, if never reconciliation. I lived long enough to see emancipation, reconstruction, and its undoing. I taught children who would never know the crack of a whip, though they would still taste the bitterness of hate. And when asked if I regretted betraying Thomas, I said only this: blood creates relation. Shared struggle creates kinship. I chose my kin. Would I do it again? Without hesitation, because freedom cannot be granted, it must be claimed. Even if the price is betrayal, even if the cost is blood. Maryland, 1860. 2 brothers, one bound by blood, one bound by chains. Only one chose freedom. Share your thoughts in the comments. Was James right to betray his brother for freedom? Or should blood outweigh all? And don't forget, subscribe for more buried histories the world tried to erase.